A stuffed toy sold for $5,000 in 1998, not because it was rare, but because everyone believed someone else would pay more. In the mid-1990s, a Chicago-based company called Ty Inc. began manufacturing small, bean-filled plush animals with a simple business model: make them cute, retire them quickly, and let scarcity drive demand. The toys cost a few dollars to produce and sold for $5 to $10 at retail. Nothing about that math suggested what would happen next. Yet within 3 years, the secondary market, where collectors bought and sold retired bears and frogs, had transformed into a speculative frenzy that would make financial historians squint and ask, how did a children's toy become worth more than a used car? To understand what happened, we need to start with the basic economics of supply and demand, and then watch what happens when psychology gets in the way. When Ty retired a Beanie Baby, it announced the decision in advance. That meant collectors knew exactly when a toy would vanish forever. The last Princess Diana bear, released in 1997 to commemorate the princess's death, became the most pursued collectible. Retired bears that sold for $10 at launch were suddenly trading for hundreds. But here's where the mechanism shifted. People stopped buying them to keep, they bought them to sell. This is the first crack in the foundation. When an object moves from being a toy, something you use or display for personal enjoyment, to being an asset, the price no longer reflects its utility. It reflects what someone believes another person will pay for it. And in the late 1990s, belief in Beanie Babies was spreading faster than any rational analysis could contain. Price guides appeared, not appraisals by experts, guides published by Beanie Baby fan magazines that listed what retired bears had recently sold for on the secondary market. Collectors used these guides to value their own collections. But here's the problem: a guide that reflects past sales doesn't predict future sales. It just creates the illusion that past prices are reliable. If a bear sold for $300 last month, the guide said it was worth $300, but that didn't mean anyone would actually pay $300 for it tomorrow. Ty Inc. understood the power of this psychology and leaned into it. The company released bears with tiny variations, a misprint on a tag, a different fabric pattern, a color that lasted only one production run. These variations became chase items. Collectors who owned the common version of a bear would search for the rare variant, driving prices up. Ty didn't have to do anything special to create scarcity, it just had to create the appearance of it. And when people believe something is scarce, they act as if it is. By 1998, a secondary market had exploded. Websites dedicated to Beanie Baby trading appeared. Collectors bought protective cases, temperature-controlled storage boxes, and insurance policies. Some people spent thousands of dollars building collections they believed would appreciate, like fine art or vintage cars. Investment clubs formed. People quit jobs to flip bears full-time. The market had developed all the infrastructure of a legitimate asset class, except for one missing piece. There was no intrinsic value. A Beanie Baby couldn't generate income. It couldn't be used for anything except being looked at. Its price was entirely dependent on the next buyer's willingness to pay. This is the definition of a speculative bubble, an asset whose price has detached from any underlying economic reality. The bubble doesn't collapse because of bad news or economic shock. It collapses because there's no foundation beneath it. And that's exactly what happened. Around 1999 to 2000, new collectors stopped entering the market. The pool of people willing to pay inflated prices dried up. Sellers who'd paid $300 for a bear suddenly found no one offering more than $50. The price guides that had seemed so authoritative became useless overnight. They'd been recording past transactions, not predicting future ones. Collections that people had valued at $50,000 were now worth a fraction of that. Ty Inc. itself survived, but its mystique didn't. The company had created artificial scarcity and relied on collector psychology to sustain prices. When psychology shifted, there was nothing left. Some collectors held onto their bears anyway, either out of genuine affection or because selling at a loss felt worse than not selling at all. Others donated them to charity. A few kept them in storage, still hoping that someday rarity would matter again. The Beanie Baby bubble wasn't unique, it was a template. The same mechanics would repeat in baseball cards, action figures, and later in cryptocurrency and NFTs. Create scarcity, real or perceived, build a community around ownership, publish price guides that anchor expectations, wait for psychology to replace analysis, then watch it collapse when new buyers stop showing up. So why did Beanie Babies cost what they did in 1998? Not because they were well-made or rare in any absolute sense. They cost $5,000 because enough people believed that someone else would pay $5,000. The price was a reflection of collective psychology, not of supply, demand, or utility. Once that belief fractured, the price evaporated. And that's the real lesson when you trace the machinery behind a price tag. Sometimes what you find isn't economics, it's hope. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe to see how the next bubble formed and why the warning signs were ignored every single time. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.